They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking,
hi, this is Nico. You're listening to my dad Farley, also known as the White Rabbit, and James Jardine on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Buckle up and enjoy.
deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we were happy.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is part two on the topic of MSSPs. We may do a third if we feel like it. I can do what I want. But guys, before I do intros, I am so excited because this is my favorite time every 4 years. Because we have, for those of you that are football fans, and I mean like the rest of the world football, not American football, where we kick the ball with your foot. Right now, we've got the Euros going on, Euro 2024, and we've got the Copa America here in Atlanta. And last night, for those of you guys, as we're recording this on Friday, June 21st, last night, Copa America opened up at Mercedes-Benz Dome with Messi and Argentina laying waste to Team Canada. And I have to say that because I flew back from Toronto yesterday, and like 3/4 of the plane on my 11:30 a.m. flight was red and white, painted faces, jerseys. There's a 3-year-old and his dad that sat next to me, fully red and white and golf. There's like 4 people in Argentina shirts. But there were 75,000, I heard, seats sold at Mercedes-Benz Dome. The Americans here in Atlanta, which I'm pretty sure I've never seen this before, were treated to the march to the stadium. If you've ever seen like proper soccer, outside the U.S., the country fans all get together someplace and then they wave the flags and flares and crap, and they march down the street to the stadium. So it's like a mile long, and people are like, "What is happening?" It was amazing. So I'm super pumped. Okay, but now we got a podcast. So with that down, I've got same cadre you guys met last time. We're going to talk about this part 2 of this discussion on MSPs. We're going to cover MSP models. We're going to cover implementation and getting value. And then we're going to talk about how you can potentially get some metrics to prove that somebody's doing something for you that's good, right? All right, quick intros there, Jim. Hey, Jim.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Great to be back. Always a pleasure.
Over there, that's James.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to be back again.
And that guy, Mr. Paul Farley.
Hey, everybody. Super excited to be back on RAF. I had a blast last time.
I got all the boxes right, so I'm learning. I'm getting this facial thing working right. All right. So as I said, last time we covered the sort of history and how to pick one and some of the things. Let's talk through the different models. So there's a bunch of different MSP models out there. What are some of the ones that are probably most effective in the enterprise? And I'll kick us off by saying, I know the MDR model version, right? Where you have a tool, and there's an MDR, there's a third-party vendor that sits and processes your alerts, does detection engineering, so they write detections for you, analysis, but you're still owning and managing the tool set. So what else is out there, guys?
Well, I'll jump in. I mean, I think there's probably an infinite level of iterations of this. It really depends, and it's changed over time. So some people outsource the whole thing, like push all their tools out, whether it's like they don't even own the stack, they stream their logs out or the provider puts their infrastructure on site, kind of thing, all the way to the other end of it's all a company's tools, and the MSP comes into the environment to do that work, or some variation of that. I think it really, the model has to match how your company does business. And so I think you get a lot of problems when people declare that one way is the right way, because it, as with most things, if it doesn't match how you do business, then it's not going to work.
That makes sense. Is there a particular version of what's broadly available today? Let's focus on like the security as a service, where they bring the stack and they bring everything. You just sort of buy security operations, and then the all in, or I guess all out, or the supplemental. So if you don't have a security operations team, you can rent one. But what if you already have a SOC? What if Paul, you've got a SOC, you've got an incident response team, you've got detection engineers. Why does an MSSP, or rather, what is the value that an MSSP provides, and what model does that take on?
So sure. I think expertise, I think some of the same benefits, it just looks different. So when you're a small shop and you don't have anybody that's a security professional, or maybe they're just beginning, they're not sure how to take it on, that's a tremendous amount of risk, because some of this stuff gets super complicated super fast, and it changes. So outsourcing, kind of that model works. As you get larger, your organization gets more complex, and it's harder for an outside party to do a good job, because they're looking across many different environments. So if you have a lot of custom, we have a lot of engineering labs, we have a lot of development environment kind of stuff that isn't immediately apparent. So we do have a strong security team, but working with a managed service provider gives us scale. It gives us 24/7. It gives us deeper expertise, because they're seeing across more customers than we are. So either their threat intel team picks something up and then goes and proactively looks for it in our environment, or they have another customer that gets hit by something, and then they turn around and run that across all of their clients, and whatever, I'll make it up. Let's say they have 100. Well, it might light up on 2, but for those 2, that's super valuable that they get a phone call going, hey, look what we found that may not have been turned over otherwise. So I think there's a variety of benefits to working with a managed service provider.
Go ahead, Jim. I've got to stop, but go ahead.
I want to hone in on that. So I actually really believe in what you're saying about having that extra dimension to an existing program, right? So a lot of people come at it as bringing an outside person in, and then they see as building their own as an alternative. And what you're saying is, if you have your own, you can enhance it in some cases by having that. So is that a recommended strategy? Because there are a lot of people that are saying, I want to build my own SOC because I feel like I have more control. I don't want to outsource anything. And then there's people like, I don't want to build a SOC because I want to outsource it. But what you're saying is you can really kind of look at each one to get the best of those worlds that benefits your business. So if you have so would your advice be to somebody who has their own SOC, even though you feel comfortable, it's still worthwhile to go investigate managed service providers to give that added sort of feature and benefit that you're talking to? Should that be a targeted solution set?
100%. Now, again, it has to match with what you're doing. But I know it's people love to hate on their managed service providers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
practically
it's a
an
sport,
sport,
right? It's exactly right. I don't. You could pry mine from my cold dead hands. No way. Because I get so much value from them. And I'll give you an example. Early on, when we were developing the NCR Cyber Defense Center and building this capability, we wanted to be more proactive. We did not want to be solely reactive, responding to what's popping in our face, but we didn't have a lot of threat hunting experience. And so I don't think it's a secret. I think I can say this. Raf, apologies if I'm not allowed to say this. We use Binary Defense, and fantastic firm. We went to Binary Defense and said, hey, can you guys do threat hunting? And they built an offering. They worked with us and said, well, tell us more. What do you want us to do? And so in addition to our own team now that does threat hunting, and we built that capability inside, but we still have some really high speed people at Binary Defense that do, we plan with them once a month and say, here's what we're worried about, or here's a new area of the business or some risk that we're seeing. And then they launch off, and either things we've asked for or things that their threat intel is picking up, trends in the market, whatever. That's just another layer on top of what we're doing. It's super valuable. And so where we've gotten a lot of benefit is as we've iterated, as we've matured, as we've gotten capabilities or had changes in our business, I've been able to scale up and scale down with Binary Defense to help me plug the holes, enhance, and back me up. So it's a very successful model. I don't think it's a competition at all. Not if you do it right.
So I'm glad you said that. And by the way, I'm happy. I have no problem mentioning them because that's happens to be who we partnered up with to deliver on my day job, our product as a service. So I'm glad it's a good fit for you. But that said, so I think there's two things I wanted to pull on. The first one really is you mentioned that, the MSSP can see something in one customer and then apply it to the others. I like that you said that's actually happening because Jim, we've been there. Mid to late 90s, that was the promise of every MSSP that was out there. We're going to see something over here, and I'm going to go apply it to all the people that and see if it's happening over here. That really never materialized. It was logistically difficult. I think there's some technology restrictions. Have you, I guess I'll just ask point blank, have you actually had a situation where something that they've caught something in a different customer, they called you and said, hey, you guys are seeing this, and you went, well, hell, I wouldn't have seen that otherwise?
Yes, we have. And the other angle of that is we have an open, we're a Microsoft shop, we use Teams. We have an open Teams channel with them to collaborate back and forth. So when they're detection engineering, when there's something hot on the internet, something's going crazy, they're seeing it somewhere or they're anticipating it, and they write a rule because we have our own. So we're a hybrid environment. We have our tools. They're in our tools.
Okay.
But they'll write a rule for this somewhere else, and then their detection engineering team will get in the Teams chat and say, hey, NCR Voyix, we're seeing this somewhere else, so we wrote this rule, and here's what it means, and here's why, and completely explain it to and educate us. So it's very much, they're a rising tide, right? It's to their benefit if we put this rule in. It's their benefit if we protect it. So very much pulling in the same direction.
That's cool. I'm glad that promise from the MSSP community got done in less than 25 years. That actually makes me feel better. Joking aside, but that is something that we said, like, that just naturally flows, right? Like, okay, if you're managing 10 customers, ideally, right? This is why SaaS products and things like that are that's some of the value is I see it over here and I can go, and let me look at the rest of my customer base. You talked about proactive versus reactive. I think there is screw it. My show, I can say whatever I want. There is an ego problem in a lot of the industry where And no naming and shaming. It's not what I do here, but I've talked to a bunch of people when it comes to like why do you outsource and why don't you? And the ones that I get like, oh, I'd never outsource that. I've got the best team in the world here, and I'm going to hire all that talent. And no third party could ever understand me and how I do business. And they just do generic work. And I'm like, my rebuttal is always, that sounds like an ego thing versus reality. And clearly you've had no issue with that, but do you see that too? Like, am I alone thinking that? Because that seems to be a big barrier for why adoption
alone
doesn't happen.
saying there's big egos in security. I've never heard that before, Raph. I don't know what you're talking about.
Thanks.
I've never seen that, so not sure. I guess we should just move on to the next topic. No, in all seriousness, man. Pride goeth before the fall.
Yeah.
I think as soon as you close yourself off to something, you stop learning. That's really dangerous. And so, I think something, and I apologize, my AirPods keep falling out. Apparently I need to get ones that better fit my ears, but you need to find somebody who's strong where you're weak, or who can, even if they're equally strong across the board, you leverage them where you're weak. And I think this is a strategy when you're staffing your team. I think this is with your MSSP. Frankly, I just had the privilege of going to the FBI CISO Academy. Super amazing experience, and would highly recommend, 10 out of 4 stars, right? Like, fantastic experience. And, but really what it's about is they have different capabilities and want to collaborate. And so if you collaborate, we're better together, right? We hear this in a number of ways. It's real, right? There are things they can do that we can't. There are things we can do that they can't. And so working together, between the cybercrime, between nation states, potentially trying to disrupt civilian infrastructure in kinetic, not that we've ever seen that, right, in Eastern Europe or things like that. So, this is real stuff. So I think it translates to your MSSP, right? Figure out where your team is strong or where you need help, and then find somebody that can help you with that. And another point, I'll throw out another point, and then I'd love to hear what everybody else thinks on it. But I also think it's really important that it's a culture fit. Because you're going to be working with these people. If you're doing it right, it's not a transaction. And something's going to go wrong. They had analysts that miss things too, right? They forget to click a button or leave a ticket open or whatever, all the things that you deal with in these kinds of environments. So you need some folks that you can work with that are interested in staying on mission and solving the problem, and they don't have an ego coming back at you at, how dare you challenge me? Do you understand that we do this for whatever? And they cite some metric about Fortune 50 company or something, and you're like, I don't know. This is a problem. We need to fix it. What do y'all think?
How do you handle the challenge of? We have a lot of people that. We have the argument in CISO world of should they be technical, should they be business? You have a lot of places that require a CISO role, and maybe there's not enough people that are technically qualified. When you have a situation where the organization doesn't know where their gaps are, to understand that, oh, wait, this is where I'd actually need to be. Like, threat hunting may not be on anybody's radar, or not anybody's, but somebody's radar, because they just have no idea. They don't have the internal staff or the internal knowledge to know this is where my weakness is. How do we get past that? Because then I think that sometimes turns into I need a consultant or an advisor external to come in and help me analyze and say, hey, here's where your gaps are. I'm not sure I don't know how many companies actually have that in-house capability to truly analyze those gaps and say, this would make sense to push off. And this makes sense to keep on.
I think there's a lot of ways to handle that. I think, you can go to like Forrester reports who talk about solutions in companies, and and they'll kind of say, hey, this company's good at this company's good at this, you should consider these things. You have to get an advisor in the door somehow, right? There's organizations like IANS that do a lot of, they bring experts in. So if you subscribe to them and call them up and say, I need to talk to somebody that's really good at blah, whatever, insert topic here, they have people that can do that. There's a lot of consultancies out there. It's hard to tell the difference between them. So some of these broader organizations, I think it's kind of like a funnel, right? If you don't know, you go to like Forrester or Gartner or somebody like that and look at what they say. Then you get the next layer down. If you have somebody you can trust and they help you suss it out and kind of figure it out, ultimately, I think you need somebody on staff. I'm not a fan of having nobody on staff that knows, because even if you outsource, if you're outsourcing to me, now you're just depending on my expertise. So I would prefer to at least have somebody on my staff that is watching my interests, right? That's accountable to me, that can help you figure that out.
Yeah. Is there hesitancy from like a CISO perspective to go mention upstream, hey, we need to go get this. We don't have that expertise. I don't have that expertise, right? Like you're looked at as the security expert. Do people feel like, hey, I'm not fulfilling my role if I'm looking to say, hey, we have to outsource a bunch of this stuff?
I think the hedge to that. So one, maybe in some environments, and a warning flag for me in any kind of technology is anybody that represents they know it all immediately my BSO meter pegs, right? So I think it's wise to go get outside counsel. And every executive team I've ever worked with says, well, what are my peers doing? What are other companies doing? And so you can use that as your leverage to go join Forrester, to get reports. There's great vendor community out there, a lot of folks that will help you to go join IANS. And those are ways to bring in what's everybody else doing. That's probably how I would tackle that. If there was a perception of, well, Paul, isn't that why we brought you here? Then I would say, well, we also want to understand what the rest of the market's doing and make sure that what we're doing is reasonable and kind of on par with that. Otherwise, that's another level of risk. If something happens, they're going to say, well, everybody else does it up here. I mean, you're doing good stuff, but it's here. That's a problem.
Right.
I think the add-on to that is almost every department in the business has some outside support, right? There's inside counsel, outside counsel. There are external financial auditors. There are all sorts of, marketing has external marketing assets, right? There's contractors are and service providers are a natural part, because I think the thing that I would point to for the why is that knowledge, when it sits and just simply operates, gets stale real fast in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a tremendous amount of value in having an outsider's perspective. It doesn't sit inside the organization all day, isn't beaten down by the same politics, the same faces every day telling them, no, not, it's fine, we'll do it this way. And they get perspective. All right, 7 minutes on the clock, 6 minutes on the clock. How do we measure success? What do you track? What kind of metrics do you track? Are you tracking KPIs? How do you go, decide whether you've picked a provider? Are they doing well? Is it time to replace them? How do you even track that, Paul?
So I think there's two answers to this question. So one, in your organization, you should have some sort of an ops review and probably multiple layers. So we have multiple layers. We have ones that are solely in the cyber defense center, super tactical, looking at the needles for this week. Do we need to make adjustments, right? Making sure we're doing what we need to do. And then those roll up until you have like a CIO level and then board level metrics that, that please don't tell the board how many, packets your firewall dropped, right? Like they're going to glaze over, but it's very important to have multiple layers of that. So I think you need the same thing with your managed service provider. You have to have some sort of ops review to figure out what's the cadence, right? And there's different ways to do this. There's different ways to show, and how that's how that arrangement is made. That's one way. The other way that I'm a big fan of that we do is you go get an outside firm to test you. Like we use TrustedSec. TrustedSec comes in, they pen test us, they red team us. That's the ultimate test of both, does my team catch it? Does the MSSP catch it? Did nobody see it and lay a finger? And if we do, then that's an area where, hey, I thought you turned that on, Jim. And Jim was like, no, I thought you turned that on, Paul. And we're like, well, all right, now we got to go turn that on. So I think there's value in both of those.
Okay. How do we avoid the trap that I've, as a provider, fall into a couple of times where, and this is maybe an opinion of yours and I'm kind of curious. If you, there's a poster used to hang on the wall in the SOC, the company I used to work for, and it had a puppy with a spill behind it. It said, when I do good, nobody remembers. When I do bad, nobody forgets. As a provider, your goal isn't to annoy the hell out of your customer every day with, look what I found, because that's what they're paying you to do. They're paying you not to take some of that burden off of them. But on the extreme other end of that, if you don't hear from your provider at all, you go, are they still doing anything for us? Are they there? Hello, McFly kind of thing. Where is the happy medium? And how do we get out of that trap of, well, I don't think they're doing anything for us, when in fact they're saving your butts 75 times a day. They're just bad at communicating, right? What kind of advice would you give to those that are in the providers section that are listening that would go, yeah, how do I show my customer that I'm doing good without being annoying?
So I fired my last provider because they couldn't show me what they were doing and they couldn't show me value and they never called me.
Okay.
And so I think it depends, right? Some orgs are going to say, look, especially if you're newer, and probably when the relationship is newer, I would advocate for this. Do a cadence weekly, 30 minutes. Hey, what's going on? Are you seeing and then as you get more comfortable with each other, maybe you lengthen that to 2 weeks or you have a monthly review. But whoever's leading your effort inside should be talking with the MSSP regularly. They should know their names. They should be able to call them. And so I think it depends really on the company, but what works for you, make sure that you have open lines of communication. Because the other thing that an MSSP gives me, and the reason I want it there, is if I get in over my head and something goes boom, they're my first call to, I need you to get on bridge because I don't know what I'm looking at. And they're not like, wait, who is this? What's your customer number? Hang on, let me look you up in the CRM. No, I'm like saying, they have my mobile. I'm like, hey, I need help. Can you get on a bridge? And they're like, on the way. Let me get the right folks. So that relationship is super important. So just like you hang out with people you like, don't do business with people you don't like. If you don't like them, ditch them and get somebody else. There's a lot of cool people who aren't driven by ego out there.
Oh, man. I hope there's a couple of providers that are taking notes because I know some of them that could use that. All right. Well, that's time. And I think that was a super great way to end the conversation. Thanks, Paul.
My pleasure.
All right.
Have fun.
Yeah, no, this is great. Look, experience, which clearly you've had a significant amount of, judging by the great color in your beard.
Not everybody is this gray at 25, Brad.
That's true. You got to brush that color in, though. All right, but no, I appreciate you sharing this because there's a lot. There are maybe not a lot. There are a significant number of good providers that would otherwise be good if they hadn't figured out how to screw up the relationship piece of it. And I think that is super critical. So, I would say I appreciate your insight, and I want to thank you for joining us. And Jim, thanks. James, awesome. Guys, this has been a good one. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you. A lot of fun.
Well, Paul, we're going to have you back on in the future. We'll pick another topic. Maybe we'll do one since we're both here locally in Atlanta. Maybe we'll do one live and just, I don't know, sit around a table with beers or something.
Sounds great.
All right, guys. Folks, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast on part 2 of the MSSP conversation. And I think this is a good one, particularly the end here. If you took some notes, feel free to listen to it a second time or third or fourth. I know Paul's wisdom transcends listening volume. There you go, Paul. I'm going to make you feel. It's a Friday. You need a hug going into the weekend, right? Because you're going to get a call in like 4 hours to work to go do something. All right. Thanks for listening, you guys. I appreciate everybody that tunes in. Hopefully, you get a chance to watch some of the video. Share this with your friends. Like, subscribe, whatever the kids are calling it these days. And for the episode, thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys another time, another place on another.